The motion carries. We have an agenda. So let's it's great to see everyone. It's always look forward to these meetings and be able to work together. And there's just so many things are tying us together these days that it's really great that we have a chance to talk and go through some of these issues that are affecting all of us. So really appreciate that. And I just, before I turn it over to Ty to do some introductions on his side, let's just go around the city council and do some introductions for us. Deputy Mayor?
Cynthia Pratt, Deputy Mayor of Lacey.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Cox, Council Member Lacey.
Ed?
Cynthia Pratt, Deputy Mayor of Lacey.
Carolyn Cox, Council Member Lacey.
Stein, Council.
Malcolm?
Malcolm Miller, Council.
Michael?
Michael Stedman, Council.
Scott?
Scott Spence, City Manager.
And I see we also have Dave Schneider, who's our city attorney, with us today as well. Ty, I'll turn it over to you to do some introductions on the county side.
Okay, great. Hopefully you can hear me well. I'll start with Commissioner Mejia.
Carolina Mejia, Commissioner for District 1.
And Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, Gary Edwards, County Commissioner.
We've got our County Manager.
Good afternoon, Ramiro Chavez, County Manager, and Shelley Slaughter, the Public Health Director, is joining us here in a minute.
Very good. My name's Ty. I'm the District 3 Commissioner and Chair of the Board.
So, before we get a update from Shelley, since she hasn't quite on yet, let's just, is Ryan Andrews here to give us an update on some annexations?
Yeah, Ryan's available. Just need John to transfer him over.
Actually, I see Shelley's sneaking on in, so let's turn it back over to Shelley so we can get our public health update on COVID-19 and our vaccination status. Sorry to put you right on the spot there, Shelley, but that's the way how these things go, obviously.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ryder. Good afternoon, Lacey City Council and Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. Really happy to be here today. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to present to you information about our COVID-19 response, as well as our vaccination efforts here in Thurston County. To provide you with an update on where we are at with COVID-19 in Thurston County to date, we've had 7,994 cases, so reaching that 8,000 mark. That puts us at 103.9 on the governor's risk assessment dashboard. To remain in phase 3, we have to be below 200 over 14 days for our population size, so we are within that range currently. There have been 462 people that have been hospitalized to date here in Thurston County since the pandemic began. Our hospital capacity in the region, which includes Thurston County, Lewis County, Pacific County, and Grays County, is at 86.7% of all of our acute hospital beds are occupied, which is pretty close to where it is on a normal daily basis. 8.1% of those acute beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients, and 62% of our ICU beds are occupied, and 7.9% for ICU beds are occupied by COVID patients. So that's just a really good reminder that COVID-19 is still very serious. It's causing hospitalizations in our community, and unfortunately 76 people have died in Thurston County to date from COVID-19. Our test positivity rate has been inching up a bit over the last couple of weeks. It is 3.1% currently. That's an indicator of how much community transmission we have of COVID-19. We did announce a few weeks ago that 2 variants of concern had been identified in Thurston County, the B1351 variant, and that can be more transmissible and potentially impact the effectiveness of available vaccines. We do know that the vaccines that we have available do provide very good protection against people in developing severe illness and dying from COVID-19. So we strongly encourage people to continue to seek the vaccine, but we are keeping an eye on the variants and the increase in cases that we've seen here in Thurston County. Over the last week, we've had 148 new COVID cases, which is a high for us over the last 2 months. So really encouraging people to continue to mask up, stay physically distant, 6 feet away from others whenever possible, even if vaccinated, and especially while in the workplace or in public settings, and also just to socialize responsibly. On the vaccine front, I wanted to share that we're making really excellent progress. In Thurston County, 137,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered. So that's great. 88,000 of our residents have received their first dose and 56,000 have received their second dose. So that's about a third of our adult population that's been vaccinated. We've been operating 2 mass vaccination sites here in our community at South Puget Sound Community College, where we are now operating every day. We do a little over 1,000 doses of vaccines each day. We have all 3 different types of vaccine available to us, but the supply is still precarious somewhat. We are encouraged that that supply is increasing from the federal and state level. And next week, as of April 15th, all people in Washington will be eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. So we are preparing to scale up our efforts, and we have the capacity to operate the South Puget Sound Community College site, as well as the Thurston County Fairgrounds site, up to 7 days a week, depending upon our vaccine supply and our staffing, which includes volunteers. We greatly appreciate volunteers. We rely on about 70 or so volunteers alone each day that we operate the site. And so we appreciate the City of Lacey and your support that you've provided already to all of our sites, the staff that have volunteered at our site, as well as supporting our testing sites in Lacey, as well as clinics that have happened at the Lacey RAC. We really appreciate you encouraging your community members to volunteer with United Way of Thurston County. That's who's managing our volunteers for our mass vaccination sites. And with that, I will open it up to any questions that you may have, because I know you have a very busy agenda tonight.
Councilmember Kunkel?
Yes, thank you. So you had quoted that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 76 people in Thurston County have died due to COVID. Is that correct?
That's correct,
okay.
Sir.
Were there any other underlying medical conditions aside from COVID that could have been the cause of those deaths, or has it been confirmed that the primary cause of death has been directly because of COVID?
So of those deaths, those are listed as the primary cause of death was COVID-19. Approximately 80% or so of people that we know about of those 76 that died did indicate that they had other underlying conditions, which is a risk factor for dying of COVID-19.
Okay. All right. That's, yeah. All right. That's fine. Thank you.
Is there any, Deputy Mayor?
Are you encouraging those that have already had it that came out okay to still get vaccinated, or even if they are in the hospital, they can't, I assume they can't get vaccinated at that time, they're still sick. Will those people be encouraged to be vaccinated as well?
Yes, we strongly encourage anyone that has tested positive of COVID-19 throughout this pandemic to be vaccinated against COVID-19. That will provide additional protection We still don't know how long or what type of immunity people have after they're infected with COVID-19. And again, once they're vaccinated, that really helps to provide extra protection from becoming very ill, hospitalized, or dying, as well as transmitting it to others. So strongly encourage that. And a contraindication to getting a vaccine is if you are currently exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. So people who are unwell should not get the vaccine until they're well.
Okay.
Back to you, Ed.
So this experience with COVID, do you know how it relates to when we have a bad flu season in previous years? Is there a similar characteristic as far as numbers of casualties?
Yes, COVID-19 is much more severe and has a significantly higher death and hospitalization rate than the flu. I don't have that specific number in front of me, but I can tell you that COVID-19 in just the last year alone has become the third leading cause of death for all Americans in the last year. So it is much more dangerous than the flu. We also haven't seen any cases of flu this year, which is very unusual. It does show that people—
That is very unusual.
people staying physically distant, washing their hands, and masking is protective against the flu. But also the fact that COVID-19 has continued to circulate, even despite our absolute best, very strict public health measures, gives you an indication of how very contagious and dangerous COVID-19 can be.
Do you know why, if you want to speculate or if you have any kind of data, you had stated that there's been almost no cases of the flu. Do you know why? I mean, the flu still exists, the flu is still around. Do you know why that is?
I think it really speaks to how the virus is transmitted and how well people in our community have been adhering to the public health measures that we recommend. That really does prevent the spread of contagious illnesses such as the flu. And so I think, and we have seen that elsewhere throughout the world, that those type of measures of, hand washing and wearing masks and sanitizing surfaces and staying away from others is really a good way to help prevent the spread of other viruses such as the flu.
Councilmember Greenstein.
Hi, Shelley. Just a quick question. Is there any specific recommendation for people who have had COVID for how long they should wait before having the vaccination? And I probably should have asked this before I had the vaccination, so I'm a little late asking myself, but just curious for the public, is there a time frame that you should wait after having it?
I am not aware of any specific timelines in terms of that. The guidelines that we adhere to in public health at our vaccination clinics is if you're no longer symptomatic for COVID-19 and if you have tested positive for COVID-19 within the last 2 weeks. However, that would not prohibit you necessarily from getting the vaccine if you're doing well.
Thank you.
Good question.
Okay. Unmute yourself and back to Councilmember Miller.
Shelley, I understand you guys are still seeking volunteers to man and staff your sites, and I was contacted by Chris Wells, and she sent out the link to push out to through our networks to ramp up that volunteer base. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you so much, Councilmember Miller. We are working with United Way of Thurston County to provide volunteer staffing at our mass vaccination clinics. And again, as all people become eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine as of April 15th for our governor, there's going to be a much higher demand for people seeking vaccine at our clinics. And that means that we're going to need more volunteers. So we are going to need approximately 150 volunteers per day over the next 2 months is what we anticipate and what we're scaling up for. United Way of Thurston County has been really successful in recruiting 1,700 volunteers, and they've been very eager to volunteer. In fact, our schedule for volunteers has filled up very, very quickly, sometimes within 20 minutes. But as we have more and more vaccine clinics, especially during the weekdays, we really need people that can volunteer. And one shift is 5 hours. It's very easy to do. We train you on the spot. United Way makes it a very seamless process to volunteer, and we could not do it without the support of United Way and our entire community coming together, all of our jurisdictions coming together. It's really an amazing thing, and I invite all of you to come out and visit any of our clinics at any time. If you'd like a tour, see how it's working. It's really incredible. People are really touched by it. It's really making a difference in helping us to get closer back to a sense of normalcy. I will also add that we have some leadership staffing positions that we are seeking to fill. County Manager Chavez will be sending out an email to all the city managers and council members about that, sharing what our needs are, because you may have staff that could be or know other people that could help us to fulfill those roles, and we really greatly appreciate it. And I also want to share that we're not just doing mass vaccination site, we're also doing community-based vaccination sites, pop-ups, and mobile vaccinations, especially to our vulnerable and underserved special populations, including our BIPOC community, our houseless community. We are offering a Spanish-speaking clinic in the next 2 weeks, and many other sectors as well, and to include also government employees coming up. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to volunteer or become engaged in our vaccination efforts. And it's a great experience, and everyone feels really good about it. So I invite all of you to contact me if you'd like more information. Contact United.
Great. It's so good to see the community step up during this time, and obviously we couldn't do it without them. So it's very much appreciated. How are we doing with supply of the vaccine? You know, that's what we've heard in the past, that, you know, the demand's been greater than the supply. Are we seeing that turnaround?
Yes, we are starting to see our vaccination supply increase. We do now have allocation projections for a 3-week forecast ahead, which is really nice, from the federal supply to the state. And Thurston County Public Health and Social Services has the opportunity to help to review all of the allocation plans for all of our vaccination providers in the county, to include not only Thurston County Public Health and Social Services clinics, which is the largest provider of our vaccines here in our community next to the pharmacies, but also healthcare providers and our hospitals as well that are vaccine providers. We're getting about 10,000 or so doses per week here in our community. We do anticipate that will increase. And so that's what we are preparing for, that we'll have more and more vaccine supply. Again, the demand still exceeds what our supply is locally, but we do expect that will increase. And our goal is that by summer, every eligible person age 16 and older here in Thurston County will have had an opportunity to get a COVID-19 vaccine if they so choose to, and we hope that they will.
Great, thank you. Is there any other questions? And thank you. Okay. Commissioner Edwards, do you have something?
I guess being we're done and Shelley's about done with her briefing, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Shelley and all of her staff and volunteers for taking on. I mean, this was a heck of a project. Nobody knew how to handle a situation like this, and the logistics behind it are mind-boggling. And her and the volunteers and her staff have just done a excellent job. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Absolutely right. You know, and I'm just really proud of the fact that, you know, really from the get-go, when we realized how big this was going to be, it was originally, you know, it was a regional effort from the get-go. We started from the jurisdictions and the county. We started meeting, you know, on every 2 weeks there for a bit to make sure we're coordinating across the jurisdictions, and it really, I think, made a difference in the lives, you know, of the people who are living and working in Thurston County. And so all the great work that happened behind the scene definitely hasn't gone unnoticed. And, you know, Shelley, thank you for everything you and your staff has done, and all the staffs from all the jurisdictions have really chipped in, and it's very much appreciated. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. And again, we couldn't do it without all of your support. It is Public Health Week at a national level, and so that means a lot to all of our public health workers and volunteers to have your support and recognition. And we are here to serve all of you in our entire community. So thank you.
Thanks, Chair Minster.
Shelley, I wanted to ask you the numbers that you gave about supply coming in responsive to the mayor's questions. That's separate from the direct federal allocation to pharmacies. Is that right?
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Munzer, for pointing that out. Our pharmacies do have the opportunity to participate in a federal program where they receive vaccines directly from the federal government that do not go through Washington State Department of Health. And we receive that allocation information about 2 weeks after it happens. So it's a little bit hard for us to know at times how much our local pharmacies have, but they are doing a fabulous job in getting vaccines into the arms of our local residents. And so that is in addition to the 10,000 approximately that we are getting through our Washington State Department of Health that comes to all vaccine providers here in Thurston County. So we really encourage people to check out Vaccine Locator. That's on the Washington State Department of Health website. That has up-to-date information as to where people in our community can receive vaccine, and that changes all the time. So we really encourage people to look at that, and also our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website, which is where we post appointment links for our upcoming clinics.
Great, thank you. That's a good point with the direct allocation to the pharmacies, and I do know a lot of people have used that option as well, especially, you know, early on. So it's been great. Is there anything else from anyone?
Yeah, Andy?
Yep, go ahead.
Just one other real quick thing. Shelley's got a phone number for those folks out there that don't have access to the internet.
Yeah, would you please give that?
Shelley.
Do you have that off the top of your head?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioner Edwards, for bringing that up. Equity is something really important, as well as access, and we know not everyone is able to access online appointments. All of the vaccine appointments do tend to require an appointment in advance for social distancing reasons, and so also vaccine providers can plan for not wasting any doses of their precious vaccine supply. That is mostly done online. However, anyone that needs assistance with technology or doesn't have internet access or has any barriers at all can call us at your local public health department at 360-867-2610. So it's 2610. And our staff that answer that phone will give information about available vaccine clinics, as well as help to register people for appointments.
That's wonderful information. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shelley. We really appreciate the update, as always.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful work session and a great evening.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.
So next, we will turn it over to Ryan Andrews, who's our plan manager for the City of Lacey, to talk about some annexation updates. Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. Oh, I think you have a hand up.
Oh, Yep, go ahead.
Could we admit Josh Cummins from our CPED director? He will
Oh, yeah.
be part of this annexation conversation, please.
Absolutely. Can we bring him in? There you go. Thanks for that.
All right, give me 1 second to be able to share my screen.
Good to see you, Josh.
Good afternoon, Board of County Commissioners and Lacey City Council. My name is Ryan Andrews, and I'm Planning Manager in the Community Economic Development Department for the City of Lacey. I've been asked this afternoon to give some updates on some pending annexations into the City of Lacey. The City Council is very familiar with these, so this is really to the benefit of the board that the council wanted to share this information with the board, as these will be coming for review here fairly soon. So we do have 3 pending annexations. There is a 4th potential annexation, which I'll talk about at the end, but there are 3 ongoing annexations that are in official process at this point. The first being the Silicon and Marvin annexation at the north and eastern portion of the Lacey urban growth area, the Mosier 54th Avenue annexation located near Southwick Lake off Ruddle Road, and finally the Capital City Chambers Estates annexation located at the south end of the Lacey urban growth area. First, what I'm going to touch on is the Silicon Marvin annexation. This is a map of the annexation area. This has been in process now for actually for several years. It did start as an applicant-initiated annexation that included some private property associated with a mobile home park, Ostrom's, Nisqually Middle School. The city actually owns a significant amount of property in this area associated with the Regional Athletic Complex and Lacey Fire District 3 with Station 34. Upon review, the Boundary Review Board took this under review and did expand the annexation area to include some adjacent residential areas. And in doing that, you have the map in front of you here that is the final recommended boundary that set forth the annexation area per the Boundary Review Board's decision. Generally, the area is known as Mushroom Corner, located between Stillicum and Marvin, so that's therefore the name Stillicum and Marvin annexation. It does include about 410 acres of property with 446 tax parcels, 562 dwelling units, and an anticipated estimate of about a little under 1,500 residents. Upon review of the Boundary Review Board's decision and upon some of the review of the area, there was discovered a existing stormwater system in the Hawks Glen portion of the annexation area that had been part of a negotiated process through both the county and the city we're working through. That has recently been completed with the signature of an MOU first by the county and second by the city manager as authorized by the city council. That was done on April 1st. So at this point, it's been 2 years since that Boundary Review Board decision has been made. And so at this point, the annexation is ready to move forward through the final stages of approval through the Lacey City Council, with the anticipated adoption date being May 20th. So the city council will have an ordinance in front of them at their meeting on May 20th to consider doing final approval of the annexation. We are anticipating that the effective date of the annexation is going to be around June 1st. We're not exactly sure when the effective date will be at this point, but you can anticipate that it'll be right around the 1st of June when the city will take over full services in the area. We do have to complete a census, so we will be completing a census. We have to go door to door to actually survey residents to see how many people live in that area. We'll be conducting that this summer, with the final annexation being complete right around the 1st of September. So by the end of summer, this annexation will be complete. The next one is the Mosier 54th Avenue annexation, as I mentioned, located kind of at the southeastern portion of our urban growth area near Southwick Lake. So here's a map of the annexation area. So it's located off 54th Avenue Southeast off Ruddle Road. As you can see, Southwick Lake is a little bit north and west of this property. It's located near Aspire Middle School, if anybody knows where that is, and Thornberry Park, which is a city park, is immediately south. It's a very small annexation, a little less than 10 acres. The property is currently undeveloped and is zoned low density, 0 to 4 units per acre. The family that actually owns this piece of property is looking to develop it for their family only. So they're looking to do 3 or 4 separate single family lots for their own family members. We are submitting this to the Boundary Review Board, which at this point looks like probably within the next week or two. We will be requesting an expedited review done by the Boundary Review Board because it is less than 10 acres and less than $2 million in assessed value. The current assessed value of this property is a little over $200,000, so it's not a very valuable piece of property. We're anticipating that this will come back to the City Council for final approval or consideration in late May, with the annexation complete around June 1st. Then the final annexation that is currently within process is the Capital City Chambers Estates annexation, located at the south end of the city. It is an unincorporated island surrounded essentially on all 4 sides by Lacey city limits. There is actually no way to be able to access this piece of the urban growth area without traveling through the city of Lacey. So just to orient yourself, it's located between Yelm Highway and 66th Avenue and Ruddle Road and the Chehalis Western Trail. So it includes the Capital City Golf Club Estates subdivision, the Capital City Golf Course. Those are located on the eastern side there. And then the Chambers Estates subdivision on the west, as well as Hoskins Field, which is on the north side of Chambers Estates, which is a private airstrip. It is 288 acres with 491 tax parcels and contains 470 dwelling units. Estimated population of this area is just a little less than 1,000 people. So the City Council recently held a public hearing on this annexation, is moving it forward to the Boundary Review Board. The one thing I did want to fill you in on a little bit and just touch on is a sewer installation project that the city is currently underway on. Phase 1 of the construction is currently underway. That's the area to the east of that dashed line where it says phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 currently under construction. Phase 2 has been authorized for construction by the City Council, anticipating that that will start in spring of 2021 with the total project completion by the end of 2022. And so, as you may be aware, this area has been served by septic tanks and drain fields. And we do have a city well located off of Sarazen Street, that's called well number 4, that has had some problems with contamination from nitrates. And the source has been linked back to the septic systems in the area. So to address the nitrate concentrations in the well, the city is doing a sewer installation project there to get rid of the septic systems in the neighborhood. Upon doing this, what the city has done is obtain power of attorney agreements. So as we've connected folks to sewer, as they've agreed to connect, we have collected power of attorney agreements that allow the city to act in the place of the property owner when it comes to the annexation. So this is a petition method annexation. So we do have enough power of attorney agreements that have been signed that the city is acting in the place of the property owner and signing the petition on behalf of the property owner. So this is a petition method annexation, even though the city is the majority signatory on the petition. This is going to be sent to the Boundary Review Board here in the next week or two for a 45-day review. We're anticipating that that would come back to the City Council for consideration in the middle of June. At this point, not exactly sure when the effective date will be, but it will be sometime right around that anticipated adoption date. Just like the other Stilicho Marvin annexation around Mushroom Corner, this one we will also have to complete a census this summer with an anticipated completion date of September 1st for the annexation. And then the last one, which wasn't on my kind of master map, but it is something that is a priority of the city council to annex, is the area around Lake Lois off of Pacific Avenue. This is an area that currently has a lot of city property in it and is just right outside of our city limit boundaries. So to orient you on the map, here's the intersection of Carpenter and Pacific Avenue. So the Safeway that's at Carpenter and Pacific is right here adjacent to Lake Lois. So the area to the east and north of the Safeway there is currently not within the city limits, but does contain a significant amount of city property. So anything that's in this kind of green shade here is currently Lacey Park outside of our city limits. And there are some quite irregular boundaries in this area too. So the goals of the annexation are to not only get in the city properties, which we could do by resolution. The city council would like to move forward with a different method on this to try to shore up some of those boundaries in this area, because they are quite irregular. So we're at this point looking at extending, if we do move forward with the annexation, the staff's recommendation, at least initially, is to look at maybe moving the boundary out to Kinwood Street, which would help make a boundary in this area much more regular. So this is, would make the boundary kind of cut off at Kinwood, which is also across the street from the Lacey Community Center at the Lacey Senior Center. So with that, that concludes my presentation. Be happy to take any questions you might have on any of these annexations.
I just first like to thank the county for recently. I know that the RAC annexation took a long time, and there was such a unique situation that we came across in that scenario. And I know there was a sort of a desire at one point just to sort of throw our hands up and start all over. But we came together and came up with a plan, and I really appreciate the county working with the city of Lacey to try to do what's best for everyone in that region, and that's what I feel like we've done at the end of the day. So I just want to say thank you for that. Is there anything else from anyone at the councils or maybe from the county on any questions we have about any of these annexations? Rosh, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do, but I saw Deputy Mayor Pratt's hand go up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joshua, if you have
It's not a question, it's a comment. Just wanted to express my appreciation to Ryan and Rick Walk and that group. And we carried the message from the county to the city that the Board of County Commissioners was looking to eliminate islands and irregular boundaries. And we understand that annexation is a process that occurs, but carrying that message to Ryan and Rick, we really appreciate the partnership that the city of Lacey has provided as we've moved forward in these annexations. So no question, just a statement of appreciation.
We've had several annexations go through recently, and we still have obviously the largest urban growth area within Thurston County right now. And if you look back at our annexation, the last annexation agreement that was signed between the city of Lacey and the county, it is really old, and so we've had talks internally about, can we get together with the county and maybe update our annexation policy, just so that, in the future, if we ever run up against something strange again, it's going to happen, right? There's a lot of things out there that, maybe may not be on our radar, but could be an issue if it's not addressed. And I think the best way you do that is by having clear guidelines on what do you do when you run into an issue, right? And instead of just everything stopping and nothing moving forward until you can come up with a solution, there should be a guidelines to get you to a solution sooner. And so I really hope we can find a way to take a look at that old annexation agreement and bring it to today's up to today's standards, because even though we've all agreed on this last annexation, they're not saying that the same elected officials are going to be around and remember everything that's been talked about up to this point. So it'd be great if we could get that updated. Deputy Mayor?
Just very briefly on the Lake Lois potential annexation, do we have some kind of a general idea of the number of residents that might be included in that or not?
I don't know off the top of my head. There's not a significant number. Most of that area is sensitive area associated with Lake Lois, and Woodland Creek also runs through there. So there's a small number. I'm going to say probably around 100, not very many.
Yeah, I just saw the top look like residential. Okay. And yes, I'm very pleased that we've moved forward with the Stillicum annexation. That was great.
Hi.
Just to clarify on that last one, Lake Lois, is the large green area in between the proposed annexation and the current city boundary, is that also city land? I mean, I can't tell because it's green, not shaded one of the two colors.
Yeah, so the area that's south of Pacific Avenue is already in the city limits. That is the Lacey Senior Center, Community Center, and Woodland Creek Community Park. That's already in the city limits. The green that's on the north side around Lake Lois, that's the area that's not currently in the city limits.
Cool, thank you, perfect.
Is there anything else? Then thank you so much. I will then turn this over to Mayor Chavez, the county manager, to talk about.
Thanks, Ryan.
Oh, you got something, Scott?
I just said thanks, Ryan. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ryan, as always. County manager.
Yeah, thank you and good afternoon. I really appreciate this opportunity. I always enjoy these joint meetings. It seems to be that we have many items in common. And as you stated, Mayor, the corporation is pivotal to move the business of the city and the county to benefit the citizens. This conversation is related to the House Bill 1590. As you may recall, that was a legislation that passed last year in 2020, where it allows any jurisdiction to implement a 1/10 of 1%. What we call is the home fund. And that will be consulmatic. That option used to be prior to 2020. It was available to all the jurisdictions, but needed to go to the voters for approval. That is the option the City of Olympia did a few years ago. So this piece of legislation authorized the same type of taxation with consulmatic action. So early in the year, as part of the first planning session, I introduced the board all the many different revenue options, as I do just about every year when the new board comes to place. And we discussed many revenue options, and this was one of them as to how the board can exercise the legislative authority to implement a 1/10 of 1%. This particular consulmatic, that will be a commissioner's action. This particular legislation allows for the county to either implement this countywide, excepting for the City of Olympia because they already have that taxation in place, or they can just take back and do within the unincorporated areas of the county. And I believe this, I was tasked to bring this as part of the conversation, open conversation, and with the City Council to see is there any opportunities now down the road, considering all of us are part of the Regional Housing Council. And the Regional Housing Council is the umbrella as to how we regionally can probably start making a dent on affordable housing and homelessness. So this is just the introduction to the subject. Commissioner Mense, Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Edwards can add on to this conversation. I don't expect an outcome or any particular decision today. This is just open for a conversation, I believe. Thank you.
Councilor Grayson?
Yeah, question for you, Romero. So you said it's council, it can be done councilmatically by the county commission, and it would cover it going for the cities as well. So the council, there'd be no action by the city council, but it would still tax the residents within the city limits?
Yeah, that is my understanding.
Hi.
Similar to the 1406 legislation that they passed, if you may recall.
That that was why I just wanted to throw this idea so that both of our councils understood it. I'm interested in this because we need resources to deal with housing issues, but I would be highly unlikely for me to support it covering Lacey without the support of your council. So that's why I just wanted to, and again, the county commissioners are not in alignment on this either. I don't want to put that out there, but I'm interested in it. I want to know how Tumwater and Lacey would feel about it being, something that we work on regionally through the Housing Council so that we have more resources. We're already collectively working on project with our $1406. We've had conversations, and I think we'll have a later conversation about our federal relief dollars. We're just looking at avenues, and I just wanted to kind of take the temperature, so to speak, of the Lacey council members. And it may not be today, it may be something that you guys think about, and because you're not hearing about it. But at some point, I would like to hear, the opinions of your council about that approach, because it's on the county commissioners what, if anything, we do about it.
I'll get back to you, Lenny. Councilmember Cox, and I'll go back to you, Lenny. You're on mute.
Hey, a couple of thoughts on that. I think it's a conversation we should definitely have with the county. And one thing I would just urge all of us to not get seduced by is, these big pots of money are coming in from the federal government now, and we'll have them, we have up to 4 years to spend that. But that's a one-time thing. And I think we need to look at an ongoing source of funding to support our efforts to create housing that people can afford. So this is a means of doing it, and I think it's something we need to take a serious dive into.
Councilor Grayson.
So, obviously our council's not discussed it yet, but I'll give you a couple of my viewpoints on it. One, I am highly opposed to councilmatic taxing action. Not a big fan. Would have a great deal of difficulty supporting something like this for that reason alone. Second problem I have with it is I believe that Regional Housing Council has adequate funds to do what needs to be done if we do it correctly. I don't believe we need yet another source of revenue. So that's just my initial thoughts, having not discussed this at a council level yet.
So I'll give you my 2 cents. And I've had several conversations about this as well. And we'll get into this a little bit as you pointed out in our next discussion item, which is the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. There's no doubt that we are in desperate need of units in Thurston County. I think this council has had some conversations around that. It is going to be very difficult for us to solve this issue long term unless there's units in place for people to go, and which will also allow us to separate people who need other help, as in mental health, drug rehabilitation, compared to needing help just getting a roof over their head, some job training, back into the workforce, so on and so forth. But right now, there is no mechanism to be able to separate those populations unless there is units in place. And this council has sort of universally agreed when we would like to have a conversation about that, specifically using our American Rescue Plan dollars, which we're going to talk about next. What I don't know and what I haven't heard, which is why it's impossible for us to, I think, comment on this quite yet, is what is it truly going to take for us to bring 1,000 units, say 800 units online, and also support the ongoing needs for affordable housing which it doesn't even talk about the specific units that we need right away in the short term, long term, but then the ongoing need for some way to bring more affordable units, regular affordable units online. And so the people who've approached me up to this point about this issue is like, you know, I would like to see the plan. Show me the plan. What different buckets of money are available? How far will that get us? You know, and then after, if we, you know, use these one-time dollars, is there a shortfall in there? And no one knows that yet, because I haven't seen the math, right? And so what I'm hoping is that we can start seeing some of the math on this to see what it will actually take to get to that number long term. I just don't know what it is yet. Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I just thought maybe I'd take an opportunity to put a plug in from my perspective on this. And I don't think throwing money at this serious problem is the solution. And I don't believe I could support something like that until, and at least that we had some mechanism in place to hold people accountable for their decisions, both past and present. And I realize that we need to make sure that we can have adequate treatment for mental health and addiction problems. And just putting the money towards building residences, for say, maybe low barrier residences at that, I don't think that's what the public wants. I do realize that they think it is a big issue, and it is a big issue. It's just that we are currently encouraging people to come to our community from all around the United States because they know they can live a deviant lifestyle at no particular cost to themselves. So we've got a lot of work to do to figure out a proper solution before I would be willing to add a tax burden to the citizens. So I just thought I'd throw that out. Thanks.
We got it. And, you know, the conversations on the Lacey City Council side, just to let the county commissioners know, has always been around supportive housing. So we know that there's a huge need for supportive housing. And with supportive housing, that allows you to address those, the people who have the drug addiction and mental health as well. So I think this council has been pretty universally on that there needs to be some supportive housing in place. Deputy Mayor? Well,
Actually, I was just going to say that you know, the wraparound part of that is pretty critical because just housing doesn't, you can't stay in a place if you don't have stability in both mental health and whatever. So, and also maybe some way to ease into a work situation so you can maintain staying there. And that's a hard task, I think, but I think that's important.
Back to you, Ty.
Just a quick comment. In case folks don't remember, 1590 is geared specifically at permanent supportive housing. Yeah. I think it's limited to that purpose. So all of those issues would be addressed, and it would be akin to the Olympia's Home Fund. And former Representative Dolio, she really went to the mat in the legislature over a 2-year plus period to get this authority for local governments. So that's why I think we owe it to her efforts to at least have the conversation and think about it really carefully, what it could be. I agree with you, Andy, about the plan and seeing the dollars. And, you know, we're not going to tax people unless we can show we know what we're doing with the money and it meets a specific need. But I just feel like that has to be explored.
Yeah, and you know, I talked to Beth about this as well, and I told her it's just the same thing. I go, you know, show me the plan and what it's going to take. And you know, Gary, I get there's a lot of people out there who are very wary of just throwing money at this, and I don't think Lacey just wants to throw money at this either. We want to make progress on this. We want to see the ability to you know, get people off the streets into some sort of supportive housing. But we also recognize there is maybe a group of people who do not want to go into supportive housing. That's a different conversation. And all of our conversations, Lacey, has been around. Let's focus on the supportive housing side of things, and put our efforts there. And so I think we've all have agreed on that part of it. What we don't know is the numbers of what it's going to take to get there, and that's what we're hoping the Regional Housing Council will at least be able to provide a plan that we can all agree on, as long as it does come down to having units at the end of the day. Because without units, we just can't get there from here. I'll go back to you, Gary.
I guess just one final point from my perspective, kind of following up on your comments, Mr. Mayor. But I'm really concerned that we put together transitional housing. And if we don't have treatment for both the mental side and the addiction side, transitional housing ends up being permanent housing. We've tried it in several of our communities around. And I mean, it's compassionate. I will not argue that, but I don't think it's the answer at this point. So I just want to kick that in there. Thank you.
No, and we understand with that. We've talked about supportive housing. All the conversations have been on the supportive side of things. And so without that part of it, then I agree. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to put someone in a situation where they can't succeed at. And so I get that. Kaylani?
So coming from the side of the courts, I mean, all of our treatment programs that we currently have in place here in Thurston County, drug court, mental health court, veterans court, the programs that they go through, they need to have housing. And that's usually one of the biggest obstacles people have. And it's trying to get housing. I mean, they have, this is people that are going through the system, trying to get better. They are, they're out there finding jobs, but usually when it comes to the housing aspect, it's where people are struggling. And I feel this would even give a leg up to those people that are already in the system, already going through, getting the support that they need. This would just give people more of an access to give it. And for me, the home fund, I mean, it wouldn't be until next year because that's I feel like when the taxing authority would be, and Ramiro can correct me on that. So it wouldn't start until January 2020. And I've been very clear, for me, I would want to see a plan put in place, like an actual brick and mortar plan. I wouldn't just want this to be just another taxation. I actually want to see a plan that goes along with that, something that's brick and mortar that the citizens can really see and say, okay, we paid for that.
Well, thank you. I do think this sort of, Scott, before going to the next.
Yeah, just a question. Ramiro, did you have an estimation in terms of what a 0.1% of 1% tax would generate for the region, excluding Olympia?
No, I haven't got to that point yet.
I know. I think it's going to be a pretty big number, right? And so, I'm interested in furthering this conversation, but I think it does sound like we all agree that there needs to be a plan in place before we're willing to go forward. So that means the Regional Housing Council is going to really need to step up here. Lenny, you got something?
Mayor, I think Councilman Stedman has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I missed you there, buddy. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that, Lenny. Hey, I just want to, this future conversation that we have, just keep in mind that when you grow at the pace of Thurston County and Lacey and communities like that, at the pace we've grown in the last 20 years, it's not just drug addicts and people struggling with mental illness that need help when it comes to affordable housing. Okay. They're not just $1 million houses, and they're not, $100,000 houses or accessory dwellings. Anytime you add units, no matter what they are, it helps the market, which helps everybody. So just wanted to, make that point.
I appreciate you bringing that up. And there's no doubt about, we've had this conversation on this city council numerous times. When's the last time a 1,400 square foot new home was built? in Thurston County. I mean, they're just not being built right now. That's an affordable home, 1,600 square foot, 1,400 square. There's no market for that, and so we do have some plans in the works to address that, and we need to continue to work regionally. So it's not just the city of Lacey, so we're working on that piece, because it needs to be the county, it needs to be Olympia, it needs to be, we all need to be on the same page on building more affordable units. And we don't necessarily have to throw money at building affordable units. We just need to set the market so that it could build more affordable units in the right circumstance. Councilmember Miller, and then I'll go back to Gary.
So, as we talk about the homeless situation, we've had, a lot of comments and a lot of email traffic about it. And I understand the citizens would like to see something done about it. I talked to a lot of homeless people, and I've taken some to lunch because, I see them and I have compassion for them and I want to hear their story. So when I do take them to lunch and I sit and talk with them, I try to pick up, on who they are, why they're out there, and definitely, if I can, try to discern, what they're going through. And I've asked several of them, are you on drugs? Are you doing drugs? Do you drink? Do you smoke? And out of the last 5 that I've taken to lunch, 4 of them said, no, I don't drink. I don't smoke. Homelessness can lead to those things, but I've chosen not to do those things. I can't afford to live here, but I don't want to leave. Is part of the, one of the main stories that I get to hear. So I agree. There are those who have decided, I don't want to be part of society. I want to drop out. And I'm not saying that I don't know what the answer is for them, but there are some of them who are trying their best and can't seem to get traffic. And it sounds to me like we are missing somebody from the table. The drug courts and the rehabilitation people who are seeking housing for these people could be a valuable part of this conversation and help us and guide to us through and to, the type of housing that we may need, the kind of help that they need, because it seems to me that they are the ones that we are really trying to help out, because they are the ones helping the homeless people find their way. And so for us to have this conversation, at a decent level, it seems like we need to bring those people to the table. And then when it comes to units, they're just too big. I get to see who can afford what, because that's my job. And, I've seen some communities where they have, very scaled down 300, 400 square foot units that are plenty enough for the people who are going through the things. But I don't think we've zoned anything to be that small. And so it seems to me that our issue is not just units, but also an affordability of units. But even the units that we consider to be affordable are oftentimes out of reach for the people who are that we are trying to help. And so I don't think we're zoned for. Anyway, I
appreciate your comments, and I think you do bring up a good point. There's no one building a 300, 400 square foot unit, because that's not what the market has been pushing right now. And of course, the market's going to go for the biggest bang for your dollar. That's what the market does. The difference is can we come up with a plan to incentivize building more affordable units? And that's something that has been eluding us for a long time, right? Let me go back, go Gary, and go to you, Ed.
Just another quick follow-up. I'm kind of in agreement there with Councilman Stedman and Commissioner Mejia. And Mayor, you said, when was the last time we did a 1,400 square foot house, which it is not the common deal, but out in the Lacey UGA near KG and 58th, I think it is, we've got a development that's been proposed out there, about 600 homes, and I think all of them are under 1,200 square feet. And but our system holds up developers that try to move forward on this type of an operation. And so if we don't have adequate housing, we're never going to have affordable housing. And as long as we keep putting barriers in front of those that are attempting to try and come up with solutions, we're going to have a hard time solving this problem. So there is a definite group of individuals, like Councilman Miller addressed, that are just not quite there as affordable on the affordability issue yet. And I really think it's crucial for us to address that particular issue by lowering some of the roadblocks that we have in place on the regulatory side of things. So just quick, thank you.
I'll agree with you there with that, Gary. And the fact that in the City of Lacey, we've been long looking at our ordinances when it comes to this, and we pass along to some of our nonprofits some breaks when it comes to that. We've talked about for a long time about passing that along to the private sector as well. And I don't know where we keep talking about this, Scott. Where are we actually at on? We keep on talking about the Habitat for Humanity. We're Habitat for Humanity. We waive their connection. We waive all these things for them, and we've talked about doing that for the private sector for a long time. I just don't know where we're at on it.
Yeah, the last conversation we had was right before COVID, and you're right. We need to bring that back before the City Council for discussion.
Okay, Deputy Mayor. Oh no, sorry, Ed. Then I'll go back to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So dovetailing what Commissioner Edwards said, he's spot on. The challenge with the regulatory practice of getting anything built in Thurston County is very cumbersome, to say the least. I think that we should be adding to the conversation commercial builders that at least have an interest or desire to actually build affordable housing that would cater to a lot of the problems that we're dealing with. They should also be part of the conversation. We should hear from them. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? How would it be beneficial to help bring affordable housing to our community? They're never in the conversation. That's part of the issue. And we're expecting them to provide us with some kind of a solution. They are the ones that are swinging the hammers. You may want to ask them. I think they should be brought into that conversation.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, and then we'll go Ty, then we'll go to the next.
So very quickly, because I'm a representative for Thurston Regional Planning Council for the Growth Management Policy Board in Puget Sound Regional Planning. So they utilize a lot of your transfer development rights and do a whole lot, particularly in King County and Pierce County, et cetera. And I don't know if we utilize that hardly at all, if at all, but that is something we could look at to help stimulate builders to try to go to affordable housing if they connect with trying to save, for instance, your forests, your other areas that are agriculture and so forth in the county.
That's a good point. Until very recently, though, the transfer development rights that King County has used so successfully wouldn't pencil down here. There hasn't been that big of a demand, right? But now with the property values going way up like they have been, especially in the core of the cities and within along the Mark Way, that it may finally become an option where in the past it didn't pencil as much, and so the incentive just really wasn't there. So Ty, and then let's go on to the next agenda.
Just a comment to throw in as to some of the other comments that I've been hearing. It's really easy to talk about. It's really easy to talk about rules and roadblocks and fees as being a problem because those are negative sounding words that are not very specific. But there's always things behind what you're talking about. In the example that Commissioner Edwards gave, the roadblock is our open space requirement. And I know the city has open space requirements, and frankly, I don't think you should plan a community. You shouldn't be designing a community without certain things like that being considered. So it's one thing to just kind of rail against, government bureaucracy, but you have to kind of go one step deeper and figure out what's the policy at issue, and is it worth the holdup or the cost that it's sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Those are always conversations worth having, but it's not as simple as sometimes it sounds.
Hey, and that's understandable. Let's go on to the next agenda. I mean, we can talk about this all day, right? And we can definitely throw jabs at the process, because there is some true process problems in place. I think we can all admit that as well. But there's also some good things in place, and I'll brag a little bit about Lacey and on how we've been able to approach some of that. With our open space, it's worked out pretty well for the developer, and for the fact that we have the largest park system in Thurston County as well. So it's been a win-win on both sides. And so there is good examples out there how you can do both, and not hold up the progress. So our last agenda item is the American Rescue Plan Act. I know that both the county and the city, we both have been briefed on a bunch of different opportunities that are available when it comes to these dollars. I'll just start off this conversation by letting the county know that at our last work session, we had a big discussion about this, and we came to the conclusion at the end of the discussion after our last work session that what we would like to do is hold off on spending any of these dollars right away, so we could have a regional conversation first about what is the best way to maximize these dollars, and specifically actually around adding more supportive housing units. Is there some opportunities that we can do together on these, as has been pointed out, these once in a lifetime dollars that we'll never see again, right? Is there some opportunities for us to work together regionally to actually make a significant improvement when it comes to supportive housing, maybe affordable housing units? And we've agreed that we would put a pause on spending those dollars until we can at least first have a regional conversation about how we can best maximize that. So I will turn it back over to the county and ask you guys, are you guys at least amenable to at least having a regional conversation first before we dive into spending these dollars? Where are you guys at on it? Now, since you're the chair, Ty, I'll put you on the hot spot. And as you know, we've had this conversation. We just had this conversation at the mayor's forum last Friday, and I think it was the same plea, right? I think the mayors from the region were at least on the same page. Like, can we at least have a regional conversation first before we go spending these money individually?
Yeah, and I was at that meeting, and I think the answer is yes and no, in the sense that there are some definite, I feel like, and the board hasn't made any locked in decisions. Obviously, we've got a preliminary sketch that we're going to work from, and I think we can tweak the dial of the timing of that when those decisions are made. I think that there are some definite priorities that are identified in our sketch that are going to remain priorities. We have a significant chunk tentatively set for Thurston Strong and small business support. We have a chunk that's potentially going to help us with some space needs that have been growing over a course of a long time for the county. We have broadband project support as something, and that's why my reaction to your bringing this up at the mayor's meeting was just, again, we need to sort of know, yeah, we want to have those conversations. And if I knew kind of what we could cook up on a regional, collaborative basis, and I knew what those numbers are, then the board could sit down and say, can we tweak the dials of what our other priorities are to squeeze that amount of money, that amount meaning the amount that we've worked on collectively toward a project, whether it's building, as you said, 800 supportive housing units or something like that, whatever that that is. So I know that there's other competing priorities, but I definitely understand the philosophy of what you're describing of let's not use an opportunity to do something really meaningful, really impactful, and we can do that better together. So I think the answer is yes, with some limitations. That's my take, and I certainly would invite my seatmates to pipe up with their thoughts for or against what I just kind of summarized.
And as we talked about in the mayor's forum, I'm not talking let's have a year-long conversation, right? But what I'm hoping what we can do is at least to look at the math on what will it take short-term and long-term to get to a meaningful number of units, whether that be 8, whatever that number be. And I just don't know what that number is yet. And so until I know the number, I hope that we could continue to work together on this. And there's just so many good things out there that we could spend the money on. The EDC's done some great, Thurston Strong's a wonderful program. And maybe at the end of the day, some of those dollars go that way. I just don't know though, until we see that math problem, what we're really up against. And that's why I'm hesitant to spend these dollars until I can study the math problem a little bit more. But I'll turn it over to the rest of the county commissioners, what you guys are thinking about this.
Or Ramiro, either any of the three of you, help me out.
Maybe also the conversation is perhaps a little bit different. Is on the amount of money that each jurisdiction is receiving, and the county is going to be receiving $56 million in the next year. And the conversation the Commissioner Menser stated, and that was the suggestion that I introduced to the board, includes the first $28 million that we're going to be receiving hopefully in the next 6 weeks. No plan I have introduced to the board to utilize the additional $28 million other than a financial plan associated with the space needs at the courthouse. And maybe I can elaborate a little bit more on the $28 million if you allow me. The plan that I proposed is considering allocating $10 million to Thurston Strong, even within the allocation to set aside $3 million to support minority-owned business and enterprises, to support $2 million farm businesses mainly in South County. And it also includes labor force training through the Pac Mountain, as well as to continue to issue grants to businesses who they need. Also, an additional $5 million, the additional $5 million, as Commissioner Menser stated, it was slated to affordable housing. I use as an example purchasing of a motel. And the reason that I use that as an example is that the time frame in which we have to utilize this money, December 2024. It seems to be a long, span of time, but in reality, at least from my point of view, getting a project of a magnitude of building homes may take longer than that, and that's probably some of the suggestions that I see. Maybe for some variations within, maybe a point of conversation. The other $5 million were set aside for broadband. There is a great need in the rural areas of the county, and I think the pandemic has shown the disparity of those individuals who don't have access to broadband and internet in the south areas of the county. And in fact, we just had a great conversation with the Nisqually Tribe Council members, and they have embarked on a broadband project. And there is an opportunity for us to partner with them in any other jurisdiction to meet the needs of the community and the South County.
So let me jump in there. You just hit on two different items that I think are very, very worthy: the broadband issue and the money to purchase hotels. In both those circumstances, there are other dollars within the recovery plan that is set aside for those things that you don't have to use direct allocation dollars for. And so why would we set aside dollars for broadband when there's a whole other pot of money specifically for broadband and community and rural broadband on for that matter. And so that's why I'm just saying, you know, the National League of Cities was pretty instrumental in passing and developing this recovery plan, and you know, I've been really involved with that association, and what they've all said is we have to wait until we see what the rules come down and what the actual other pots of money and how far that will go and what the allocations are going to actually look like, before we just jump out there and spend. You know, the last thing we should be doing is spending our direct allocation dollars on projects that we can use other dollars for, and
Yeah,
which,
but,
right?
if I may, Mayor, I was not suggesting we're going to be jumping and spending the money. I'm just outlining the plan that I provided to the board. It's as Commissioner Messer stated, that has not been decided yet. Okay. And I was just giving additional details as to the plan that I provided. Yeah. So, and I understand there is other monies that come to broadband, and we just have to see that. And what I introduced that is the need that we currently have in Thurston County and the opportunity to alleviate the need.
So does any of the other county commissioners want to add anything, or anyone from the city council?
I don't want to hog the show.
Oh, go for it, Gary.
I guess I'm kind of in tune with you, Mr. Mayor, and I will say that remote learning was not very successful in total, but it was especially a flop in rural America because we are suffering out there. And I'm hoping we can come up with some good solutions. But I agree, we need to look at what is available and kick it around pretty good. So I don't want to hog the show or anything, but fairness is probably my bottom word on the whole thing. I'm very concerned that we treat people fairly on this whole thing, and as we make these allocations. So I'll quit there. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Lenny, you got something?
I mean, you and I have discussed this at length, obviously, and I think everyone needs, all of the jurisdictions, us, the county, all of the cities need to just take a step back for right now, as you've said. So I don't really have anything to add. You and I are on the same page on this one. We need to all step back, see what all of the different allotments of money are, because in addition to this direct allotment, there's lots of other pots of money. There's also a state budget that's, that they're working on. And in talking to some people in the legislature, there's going to be a lot of money for some of these same issues in the state budget. They're talking about $300 million in money for homelessness. They're talking about, $15 million for cleaning up some of these sites, some of the encampments that are out there. So I just think it makes more sense. We have 4 years to spend the money. I know it's not a really long time if you're starting a new construction project, but I think there's enough time that we should all take a breath.
I appreciate that, and I do agree. There are what's coming from the state. The state needs to step up, and I hope we're all in agreement here. The state has really taken a back seat when it comes to this issue. What all they've done is give additional taxing authorities to the cities and said, cities and counties, you guys solve this problem. Well, that's I don't necessarily call that a partnership there. And the states are receiving considerable dollars as well, aimed at the same things that we're trying to do here. And so I really do hope the state is going to step up and be a partner for a change when it comes to this issue. And hopefully we can pair their dollars with our dollars and actually, then hopefully we get that at the end of the day, we can allocate some of these other dollars to these other needs that we have. Councilmember Cox?
Well, at our recent work session on this, one of the suggestions I made was that if the county commissioners and staff are open to this, that perhaps we could task the Regional Housing Council with coming up with strategy for using, certainly not all these dollars, but a significant chunk to get to the supportive housing projects that we all seem to want to be doing. Part of my rationale is that this group our portion of the group is already very involved with recommending to the county commissioners the existing federal and state funding that we have and how that money should be allocated. We have a whole grant funding process that we deal with on that. And so the county staff has been supporting this group, and Tom Webster just has immense expertise on this. And it just seems to me like we've got this new group, we've got great support from the county, and that this seems like a logical place for conversations to be happening.
So here's my recommendation is that we do that we support that to a larger degree with staff as well, so that we can expedite this process. What I don't want is for the Regional Housing Council and it be kicked around for a long time, and now we're like, we don't have a plan, and now we're everyone gets antsy, and when we lose this opportunity. And so if we can at least agree, and I know City Manager, I've had a little bit of a conversation, but if we can throw some additional staffing at this in the short term, so we can finally see actually a good recommendation come out of the region in an expedited fashion, at least so we can see what the numbers look like. I would be in support of that for sure. And hopefully, the county, hopefully you guys would agree with that. Let's at least take a shot at this and go all in here for the next couple of months for sure. And hopefully we can come up with a plan that we can all agree on. How's that sound to you, Ty?
Trying to unmute there. That sounds reasonable to me. I definitely, I think that's the right place to have that conversation. They're going to be able to pull something together, because Carolyn's right. I sit here, not on the Regional Housing Council. I don't know how these potential streams of money would fit with others and other things going on. We need a group that has the full picture at their fingertips. So I support that.
I agree. I'm not on that group either. And so it's always difficult when you say, okay, let's, but I have to have faith in the process a little bit, that you guys are gonna with the right support, you guys are gonna be able to get there. Deputy Mayor.
So I agree. I think we do need to back up and just see what's going on. One of the things, though, I want to keep in mind is that the assumption is these will always go to affordable housing. I kind of slightly disagree with that, because there may be other things that we need to see is if they're being covered or not, and we have that opportunity. But until we back up and make a plan and look at what's coming in, we won't know that. But I just want to make sure that people assume that not all of this money is going just to the Regional Housing Council.
Yeah, and I think that's all we're tasking them with is it's what does the plan look like? What does it actually mean to get to 800 units? What's that possible pathway to get there? And what are the different revenue streams? We've been talking sort of about this behind the scenes for a long time. The difference is we haven't had this direct allocation from the federal government ever before play a part of this. And so we've always thought about this plan in a sort of a long period horizon, which is frustrating for, I think, everyone. If we can shorten that horizon, as long as we're still building units at the end of the day, I just don't know how you get around this without actually building units at the end of the day. Maybe we can get there a lot faster. And so I hope that's what we're taking a look at. Does anyone else have anything else? Gary, back to you, Gary.
Well, I guess before we leave the topic, I guess I would just like to make sure that we remember that there is only so much room in the lifeboat when it comes right down to it. And I'm all about a hand up, not a handout. And I'm kind of a tough love kind of guy. And I want to help those that are willing to help themselves. So as I develop policy, that's kind of where I'm coming from, that we must remember, well, we've got some money to spend right now, but what about a few years down the road? Can we maintain this? if we go a certain route. So I'll just let it go at that. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and I do agree. It has to be sustainable. You know, so I'm with you there. Is there anything else from either one? Well, thank you so much, County. I do really appreciate this conversation, and you know, and I do know there is some immediate needs for the county, and especially on your use side, your space side of things. You need to. I know that's a big issue. You guys need to figure that one out too. And so I totally understand that. I hope we can at least get to an understanding of what it will take to actually, you know, achieve, you know, some of these goals that we've been talking about for a long time, but we haven't seemed to make any progress on. So, you know, we can at least take a deep breath here for a little bit and throw all we can at it, and maybe we can come up with a solution, at least a long-term pathway on how we can get there. And so I appreciate your consideration on that. Scott, do you have anything before we go?
I don't.
Anything else for me at the council, county commissioners? Well, thank you so much for having this joint meeting. We obviously have a lot to continue to work on, and I look forward to the work. Scott?
Well, yeah, I thought you were going to the next thing for next step. Sorry.
Well, I guess the wrap up next steps is that I think we sort of agreed with on what the next steps are going to be. The one thing I do want to talk about though is back on our annexation agreement. You know, I do think that needs to be updated. At one point I heard that there was going to be a joint planning commission meetings between our planning commission and the county. Where is that still going on, or is that? Because that's where the work needs to happen, right? Is our planning commission needs to sort of work with you guys as planning staff on a recommendation that we both agree on how we can get that updated. I don't know if they've met or if they're planning on meeting, or do you know anything about that on either side?
Well, on that particular issue, Mayor, there was some discussion at the Thurston Regional Planning Council, and that did sort of go through a process for a while, but I think there was an understanding that, you know, Lacey had the largest UGA, and it was maybe more of an issue between Thurston County and City of Lacey. That was a joint effort with Olympia as well as Tumwater. So I think, to your point, this is an ongoing conversation we certainly have with Thurston County.
Okay, well then I think we definitely, I think we need to keep that conversation alive. I just, there's just so many things that are happening so quick, and I don't want to be on the, you know, I think we all need to be rowing the same direction here. And so if we can eliminate any of those issues ahead of time and we can expedite this process, you know, and I think the county is aware that and one of the ways we've looked at this, trying to solve this issue, is by if you're doing a new development and you're adjacent to our city boundaries, we're asking them to be annexed into the city first, and so we don't have to chase them, you know, afterwards, try to get them annexed in the city after they already have the water and sewer and all of our services. I think that's been a big part of why our UGA happened. Is part why it's so big too. Is when the development happened. You know, a lot of the development happened even before the City of Lacey was a city, and so we had no ties into that development, and they've sort of been left on their own for a long time. And so that's one of the ways we've been trying to figure out how we can prevent these problems going forward. It's let's just annex them to the city, then, you know, provide them services. Gary, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, I mentioned earlier that we did have a development in the UGA for Lacey, and I think that is a great idea. Rather than try and adjust our plans and make the developer jump through a bunch of hoops and whatnot. So I think that's a great idea to move forward with that type of thing. Not only is it next to UGA, but that individual has property he wants to put in your park system. So it all fits really well. And I'm hoping Josh is listening and maybe can get with some of your folks maybe and pass that information on. At least get the dialogue started, because, you know, the county takes about 2 to 3 times longer than most other places to do business. And if we're truly going to have affordable housing, we have to get some housing on the market. That is the bottom line. those are smaller, affordable homes that are being proposed out there. And I would love to see that happen. So that's just one commissioner's perspective. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's no doubt, I think, even our Martin Way corridor, the vast majority of our Martin Way corridor is in our urban growth area, not in the City of Lacey, is in prime to be redeveloped. But if you talk to developers, they don't want to go there because of the process that takes trying to be in concurrency with the county and the city. It just drags out and doesn't make it profitable. So they throw their hands up in the air and they don't want to do it. We have to figure out a way to solve that issue too. And so again, we're just gonna have to continue to work together, either at the planning commission level, staff level, whatever it takes, and find a way that's a win-win for both of us. And I know we can get there. It's just, we gotta just work at it.
I would hope that we could actually have another meeting and this could be the topic, because I think that is going to give us that controlled growth that we want to protect the environment and at the same time create affordable housing. So yeah. I think we can do it.
Well, then what I would suggest then on those lines is let's bring in the developers, maybe some of this affordable housing, advocates, and let's hear about what the real barriers are. We just keep on hearing these anecdotals, right, of what it is, but let's maybe bring in the master builders and the realtors, and we have a conversation about how we can continue to work together and what the barriers are of building within the urban growth areas. So that's specific to our two jurisdictions in this circumstance. And if we can find a way to help streamline that, then that works for everyone involved.
I have recently talked with the realtors and the master builders, and they'll buy lunch if we could get together, I can tell you. They are very enthused about doing something to get around some of these unnecessary roadblocks.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll turn that back over to Scott and Romero to see if we can figure out how we can set something like that. I'm more than happy to have that conversation as well. So looking forward to it. Okay. With that, we have reached the end of our agenda. I really appreciate the conversation as always. And until next time, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.